I was also always afraid to teach theory because I feel people gonna get scared and bored and they want to quit, you
Yeah.
know. But people are interested in that because the people that really care about music, and I think it's the ones that we want to teach as teachers, also as educators. They want to learn what we know. They want to learn how do we get to this place, and I find that to be really one of the ways to reach that place.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, a lot of them over 50, and they are learning bass, having the time of their life playing music that they love. You should join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. Remember, you're never too old to groove, so let's play bass. My guest this week is Marcelo Maccagnan. He is a highly accomplished bassist, composer, and band leader, originally from Brazil. Growing up, he listened to a lot of rock, electronic music, Brazilian music, of course, pop, before enrolling at Berklee College of Music in Boston. And after graduating from Berklee, Marcelo moved to New York, where he became an in-demand player and sideman. He's recorded with Kenny Werner and Peter Eldridge, and he's performed with Flight Suit, Tender Beats, Stones in Pockets, and the Cindy Latin Big Band, among others. As a leader, his solo releases include Looking Ahead, Boundless, and Night Tales. This is his first time on ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Welcome, Marcelo. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
I've been listening to your music and I've been reading about a lot of cool stuff that you did, and I'm sure our audience would be very interested in your story. So, how much can you tell me about the early days growing up in Brazil, your initial exposure to music, and how you became a bass player?
Yes. So, when I was young, I would say around 7, 8 years old, my parents got me and my brother like a little keyboard, like those tiny Casio ones that basically like a little children's like toy. And we were messing around with it. We took like some basic lessons on piano. And as I got older, I would say when I really became like a teenager, I started to enter my rebel period of my life, trying to fight with my parents, all that stuff going on. I got very into music. I was just listening to so much music. I got super, super into Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I would say, and I always say that, like, watching Flea play the bass, what kind of was the main thing that inspired me to learn the bass because I don't know, I got connected to the bass when I was like 14, 15. I really, really, really wanted to buy a bass. And my parents said, uh, nobody cares about the bass, so we're just going to get you a guitar. So they bought me a guitar. And then I took 1 year of guitar lesson and I was like, I really don't like it. Can we try to get a bass? So they bought me like a Dean bass, is one of these like entry level bass guitars, which it was very nice when I started. My grandparents actually got me, and I was like automatically falling in love. I was playing like some like Californication on the bass, and I was like, oh yes, that's what I want. And from there, I got very lucky to be around a group of friends that were really into music. We formed like a little cover band in high school, and we got to learn from each other's musical taste. And I also got very lucky to have a teacher back then that he introduced me to jazz in a very flexible way because he didn't just brought me to like straight ahead jazz right away, swing upright. He showed me weather report first, and he showed me Jaco, and I saw, oh, so you can actually do this with the bass also. You can take a solo like that. I was like, oh, and that's kind of when I decided I want to follow music. So that's kind of the early time, the early days.
Did Jocko
Yeah.
become one of your major influences? It sounds like.
100%, 100%. Like I would say, Flea was what made me want to play bass. And then after, when I was 17, 18, Jaco is what inspired me to become a professional musician and pursue the career of music. Yeah.
Uh, those are a couple of incredible bass players. Anybody else on your list of influences?
For sure. I mean, as I get older and as I get more, familiar with other genres, I also start to get very into upright bass. In school at Berkeley, I did a lot of upright bass studies, and I was very into, Paul Chambers, What probably my main influence. Sam Jones also playing with Miles, the quintet, everything, and some more modern guys like Avishai Cohen also, and some other cats. But besides, on the electric bass, one guy that I really like a lot, and I don't know. I don't think it's like so. I mean, he's known in the bass community, but not so known in the outside the bass community, which is Dane Alderson playing with Yellow Jackets. He's like one of my favorite sounds ever when I listen to the bass. He kind of inspires me a lot. So I would say he's one of my favorite ones. And currently, I think like everybody else, kind of nowadays, Hadrian Farad is like one of the main guys that I listen up to. Like, oh my God, you
Yeah,
know,
he's
yeah,
incredible. Yeah, I interviewed
yeah.
him, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Yellow Jacket.
Nice.
I just interviewed Jimmy Haslip like a week or 2.
Oh, awesome. Oh yeah, Jimmy also another one for sure. Jimmy, it's so good, like so unique. Also the way he plays the everything. I love it.
Were you following the Yellow Jackets when Jocko's son, Felix, was playing with them?
Yes, I saw a little bit. I got to see Felix playing live a couple of times in New York, and I enjoy him also a lot. I mean, Yellow Jackets always had the best bass players ever. Everybody that's there, I enjoy it. It's just that the one with the live shows with Dane Alderson were the ones that inspire me a lot when I watch. But one of the albums with Felix, I forgot which one it is, the one with the Brazilian singer, I believe. It's what maybe a couple hours ago. Was a very nice one also, and that also was beautiful. I love Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
just a little bit more about Brazil. The country has such an incredibly rich musical heritage. I mean, did you grow up hearing Jobim and Astrid Gilberto and all of that whole? It seems like it would be unavoidable, but that was like in the early '60s. It was Stan Getz and with those
yeah.
guys. But was that on your radar at all? Were your parents
Yeah.
listening?
Yeah, great question because Brazil really is a gigantic pole of music. Really, like we have so many different genres, so much culture, and one would think that you would be exposed to that all the time. But I would say really it's like a times thing. That was very big in the '60s and the '70s, and that was like our mainstream almost. Back in the day, music. And when I grew up, which was the '90s and 2000s, I think we always listen to that and we are aware of that. But I didn't grow up with that in a way that I was listening the same as I would listen to like rock, for example. Like my parents, my mom, she listens to a lot of like Queen, Tears for Fears, 80s, 90s,
Oh,
80s, 70s, 80s, like rock.
cool,
And
mom.
I grew up more with that, and she wasn't like the biggest fan of like Brazilian music, even though we listen. Of course, there's so many different kinds, but I didn't grow up with so much of that. I was exposed, but I honestly got more exposed to that in school when I started to study music and I started to see, there's all these things going on, and there's so much on the rhythmic part of Brazil that there's to be studied because the percussion in Brazil is really really deep. But growing up, really, it was a little bit. But for the mainstream people, like my parents are not musicians. I didn't think about music every single day of my life, right? We don't get exposed to that. It's not something that's in the radar of most people, which is kind of sad, but it is the reality. That's what it is.
What about at Berkeley? Were you interested in a particular style of bass or particular style of music? Or my son graduated from Berkeley. He's a guitar player,
Nice.
and so I have some firsthand knowledge of what goes on there. But what about
Mm.
your experience? Did you study with Bruce Gertz on the upright?
I did a lab with him. I never got a private lesson, but I did a lab. I also got like one of his books, like The Walking, I think it's called, or Walking. It's a great book. Actually, I still use it to like help teach some students. But in Berkeley, I was really deep into straight ahead, into swing,
Really?
and I
So
was
you played a
really
lot of
into
upright, I guess.
mostly upright, mostly upright. And I was playing also a lot of bowl, a lot of classical also because there's not so many classical bass players, and I was never one. I was never really into classical music so much. But since there was the chance to play in like the Berkeley Orchestra, and there's this other project called the Berkeley World Strings, which is when I recorded with Kenny Werner. In those projects, there's nobody that wanted to play up bowling, bowl bass. So I ended up getting a lot into that, which helped me up get some other gigs here in New York as like, like a Broadway or like off Broadway kind of vibe, that kind of thing. But, in Berkeley was mostly straight ahead jazz. I was just swinging, swinging, swinging. And the transformation to go into like the electric bass, which really is my main field, I would say nowadays, on the last like 5, 6 years, came after I moved to New York. I just, had like a little change of heart, and I want to pursue this other side of music. I feel it's more inside of me. It's like a full circle. I came back to the rock at the end, like a little bit more what I was raised with.
There's no shortage of electric bass players in New York, but in a way, it almost sounds opposite. I think of New York, if you want to go for straight ahead,
I know.
the upright. Did you start learning upright in Brazil?
So the upright, I started quite late because what I did was I didn't go to Berkeley right away. I went to 2 years in a Brazilian college called Souza Lima, and it's part of one of those being programs with Berkeley that you can transfer your first 4 semesters.
Ah,
And in that college, I was 18 when I started, and that's when I started to play upright because I got into that school by playing electric, and all my peers were like, "Man, if you want to really learn how to play bass, you should get the upright because in Brazil there's not a lot of upright players. It's kind of really very few upright players in Brazil, I would say. And if you do know how to play upright, there's many more opportunities, I would say. So everybody was telling me learn upright, and I started learn and get all my calluses, go through the pain of learning upright. And then in Berkeley, I just dive in head full on the full on the upright, and that's it. Yeah, that's the story.
yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So when you graduated from Berkeley and you went to New York, you probably had a lot of friends who also went from Berkeley to New York. But
Yes.
did you have anything lined up, or did you just say, I'm
Well,
go for it?
yeah, mostly it was the go for it thing. I just load up a van and I drove to New York, and I almost crashed the van. There's like those parkways that you can't bring like those vans, and then almost crashed one of those bridges. I still remember. Anyway, it was a crazy transition, and I was just like, let's see how it goes. Because also as an international person, international like immigrant, however you want to call it here, we have like a time limit to figure out stuff
Right.
until we get kicked out, kind of, right? So, I had 1 year to figure out stuff. And then I got very lucky. I moved here like right away after graduating. I would say, I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to get gigs. I was pretty much taking any show that I could ever play, doing everything I could do, and adding to my portfolio, adding to, everything that I have done. And after that 1 year, I was able to get my visa. And from there, I was able to really maintain myself here. But that was the plan pretty much. I had some people that I knew, I had some friends, some connection, but nothing solid really. It was really like a hope for the best.
So you probably sat in on a lot of jam sessions and
Yeah, yeah.
hung out at the clubs and just met
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, the first year, a lot of jam sessions for sure. A bunch of them that closed by now. There was that one, the Cleopatra Needle, I think, that closed a while ago. A couple of the ones Fathers Knows Best, another one that closed. There's a couple of them they know that I was there a good amount in the beginning. And then also just, trying to cold email some people, or just seeing, oh no, the friend of my friend maybe needs something. Then they ask, oh, there we want to go busking. Tomorrow it's 100 degrees and we're gonna make $10 each. You want to come? Yeah, I'll come. Sure, let's do it. Yeah.
Now, I used to go to New York. I used to play there a lot in the 80s.
Mm,
And first place we would always go is 48th Street. Now, it's
mm.
not like it used to be. Maybe you've heard about it, but was any of that? Hey, all the stores, Rudy's and Sam Ash, and all the music stores, all. Well, what I left out a big one. What was it? I don't know. But what was that going on when you were there, or had that already closed up pretty much?
I cannot think about it. It might have been done when I was there, or I just wasn't aware of. Yeah.
Manny's, that's the other one I was trying to think of.
Mm,
All those great stores. Yeah, it's too
yeah.
bad. We just
Mhm.
so what's keeping you busy these days, Marcelo?
Nowadays, I've been thinking about that actually lately, and I feel like I've been splitting myself in three equal parts quite well recently. I do like a good amount of education teaching. I work with a lot of cool students that are people that are semi-pro bass players trying to pursue a more like thing into bass, going more deep into bass, and I'm super happy to teach that because it really is my passion. Back in the day I was teaching a lot of guitar or other stuff just to have a little bit, but now I can teach bass more because people got to know a little bit more about myself. The other part I do a good amount is social media. That's where I get a lot of my students also, and I've been just focused a little bit more on that. I don't know, as the days change, as things get more modern, and I don't know, as the music industry is chaotic as it is the last couple of years, I've been kind of investing more time into social media, and that's been growing quite well. I've been very happy with that this last year. And the last thing, of course, is performing. I've been performing, especially on summer nowadays. I've been playing a good amount of music. I do a couple projects that are very interesting. They're more like into the world music category. I do this one with this artist called Rini, Rini. She's an Indian singer slash violin player and composer, and she writes, Carnatic South Indian music mixed with electronic music. And I play electric bass, and we use effects, and it's a very interesting project. Definitely recommend people checking it out. And then I do some substitution in like off Broadway stuff, also like musicals. That's something I've been also working a little bit more closer this last couple of years, because again, things changed so much since COVID. Like I lost so many shows, but I got so many shows, and live music is very different now. It's hard to make a full living on live music on like original projects, right? Things that are completely original music. So I'd be focused a little bit more on like working on those musicals because they're a little bit more stable in that sense, right? It's things that work with a theater, work with a full production. And then I also have my projects that I try to release. I'm about to release a song next month. Actually, I've been working on new music, trying to put out singles because nowadays nobody wants to put out albums because that's kind of done almost at this point. So I'm just putting out singles as much as I can, putting out music, and playing as much as I can.
That sounds very exciting because I loved the theater work, the Broadway stuff. I did a
Mhm.
ton of that.
Mm.
And social media, we didn't have that back in the 80s. And I was kind of laughing because a couple of years ago, I had a problem. I had to reset my sound post on my upright. So
Mm.
what I could never do back in the 80s, I went on YouTube and I looked for how do you reset the. I'm
Yeah,
never sure if I get it quite right, but I got it in there.
yeah.
Tell me about your equipment and your bass gear and all that stuff.
For sure. As you can see back there, I got my NS design, my main base. I just got it from them. Super blessed to just get endorsed by them. So,
Congratulations. That's a
so
great company, great people. And
they are so nice. Yeah, Corey is the guy that hooked me up. He's an amazing artist relationship, and this bass is super cool because he has two things that I always wanted. First of all, six strings, which is kind of more on my vibe for my own original music. I'd like to do a lot of like work with chords and voice leading, more like a guitar bass more than like a bass itself. So that helps me a lot to reach that range. But this bass is a very cool piezo pickup, and I love to use that for solo projects, solo bass performances or recordings. And the other thing is that it's a headless bass, so it's super, compact. I can pretend it's a guitar when I go on the airplane, and it just saves me a lot of time. And honestly, I think I can never go back to a non-headless bass. Like it's so much easier to transport. It's unbelievable. Because I did have problems before with my other full scale, because that's technically a full scale bass, but headless. But I had problems with another full scale bass that is just too big, and people don't want to put on the airplane. And it's like, yeah, that's not fun. But
you
that's
ever,
my main gear.
you ever traveled with an upright bass? You haven't lived until you've done that.
I know the upright is a nightmare. I whenever I have to play and it's outside, I actually just rent. I never really took it on a plane in my life. Upright bass. Hopefully, it wouldn't be something that would be so horrible. But I heard it's not so fun. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I've done it both ways. When I did it myself, I had to buy another seat for it and put it on there.
I
But
got it.
on a tour, they send me a trunk and
Hmm.
it's on the trucks and all that stuff. I'm sorry, it sounded like you were going to continue with your equipment and your gear.
So that one is definitely my main X, my main bass. And then the other thing that I use the most, honestly, nowadays is my Line 6 HX Stomp pedal, which I just been using for every show pretty much. It just saves me, again, I'm all about being compact and just saving my back from paying. Because in New York, I don't have a car. I just go subway, and if I have to walk, I have to walk. So that thing is amazing. Digital interface, tone pedal with all the things I ever need. I have my compressor, I have my reverb, my delay, I have a loop pedal, I have amp simulator. So I just bring my little box like this big. And then for amplification, I like to use my Fender. My Rumble Fender is again, it's very light. That's why I like it so much. It's like I don't know, 200 watts for 400 watts. I forgot the wattage of the amp, but it's a very nice and light bass amplifier, and it sounds pretty nice with my bass. So those are my three main things for sure. And I also have the electric upright bass from NS Design
And
that I've
I
been
was going
using
to
in some
ask you
shows.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that very
five
fun.
string, four string, six string. What would how
That
many?
one is a four strings, a regular four string. But I for because this off musical, right? Those musicals, if they need an upright bass, sometimes I just take this, and it saves me. Yeah, it saves me a lot of energy for being in
I
the full
hate to
upright bass.
I hate to put it this way, but can you get away with that in New York?
So it depends on the show a lot. If it's like a straight ahead, like if I'm playing swing, you're not gonna get away. But if it's your show, is basically they just plugging you in from the DI. It's gonna sound technically better, I think, than to plugging in on my bass pickup. Because if they don't mic your upright bass, the sound still, it's not gonna be so distant from just getting the DI from the electric upright. So you can kind of get away with it. I've been getting away a little bit recently. Let's see how long he lasts. I hope he lasts for a while because I can just put on my back and take it as an electric bass. But of course, if I'm playing like a jazz show, like something that's really it requires improvisation and that kind of stuff, more deeper tones, or even like bowing, I would use the full upright bass. And
What
for
is
that, I have a nice sorry.
well, go ahead. For that
I
you
say
have
for that I have a nice like a Russian bass from the 50s that I got a couple years ago. It's a very nice upright.
um so obviously the genuine upright is better for bowing, but the NS I think is not too bad. I haven't done it too much, but what's your experience with bowing on the electric upright NS design bass?
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, the cool thing about having an electric upright is that first of all, you can kind of forget about everything you learned about thumb position because you can play everything up here like this, which is very cool. I see a lot of like new players I see online. I see also on the NS design page, players just playing all the way like this, and it's like you're playing an electric bass, but vertical, right? So that's a very interesting approach. And the sound itself, I mean, the feeling, first of all, it's pretty much the same, I would say. For the right hand, the bowing sounds really nice, and the way the rosin feels against the strings also very, very good. The sound is the one that, of course, is good with a DI, but if you were to mic it with an upright bass, the upright has all the rich tones from the wood and all the information. But from a DI perspective, it's pretty good, I would say. Like it's really, really there. Sounds great.
I love those NS design rights. Just
Yeah, me too.
exquisite. I want to ask you about bass education because you've studied a lot and you've taught and you teach. For Bass Players Only, as I mentioned at the beginning, is really a bass instruction site. And the reason I threw in that a lot of them are over 50, most of the students that I have that I've attracted are men in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I've got students in their 80s. And by the way, I am getting a fair bit of women now too, but they're not looking to make a career out of playing music. They just, they want to get together and play some classic rock riffs with their buddies or some blues shuffles or maybe some walking bass, but they just want to do it for fun. Maybe they have some time now that they didn't have before. So I'm just trying to give you a context. A lot of times, dealing with arthritis and tendonitis and those kinds of things that happen as we get older. So now that you have the picture of who we're talking to, what advice can you impart to somebody like that who wants to learn bass? What should they be thinking about? What kind of goals should they have? What kind of questions should they ask? Or anything, and I'll jump in anywhere.
Yeah, the main thing, because I always like to kind of split my thinking when it comes to education in two different ways, right? Like you want to have the whole enjoy music, I think, and do your best. Forget about all the technical stuff, forget about all that stuff. Just find what you like to do You want to play shuffle blues with your buddies, learn that, listen to that, absorb that language by being exposed to it the most, and just be around it. Just try to do your best when you're playing, and forget about everything else. Like just have fun. And the other part, of course, is spend some extra time on your room, whatever, on your practice space, working on the technicals of each genre. Because I think it's important to really understand the genres that we're working with. Like if I'm working, with the Indian music stuff that I was talking about, I'm gonna be practicing some stuff that a little bit different way than if I'm practicing for like a straight ahead or a jazz fusion gig in a way. So if you're playing blues, understand what is a blues, right? Like what does it mean to play a blues? Like the 12 measures right there, like how does it work? How are they divided? How are they organized? And then if you want to learn how to play jazz and you want to get into, playing the real book, which is something that I also myself get a lot with students, like I want to see a PDF or like a music chart, and I want to learn how can I play this? What does it mean to have a G major 7 here? Like, what do I play? So I would say get into understanding what are the chords. Because for bass players, really, we are the floor, what's the John Patitucci, right? Like John Patitucci, he says that bass is the earth, right? Bass is where everything comes from. The bass decides where the chords are, right? So understand that we have that whole responsibility of really giving meaning to what everybody else is playing. Because if everybody's playing, like these notes here, and you play a G, it's going to be different than if you play a D flat. So those are two different chords. So understand the role of harmony, and I would say understand what does it mean to have this chord spelled out. Like what is the A minor 7? What notes are inside this chord? Also, what are the intervals inside this chord? So music theory, in my opinion, goes a very long way. And I understand it's something that requires time, and it can be a little exhausting, especially for different kind of people, different personalities. Some people, because it's basically math, in my opinion. If you're good at math, you can be good at music theory. And if people might not like that more, logical brain, it might get a little bit boring. But if you really want to learn that genre, go for it. But as I said before, understand that there's a lot of great cats, great players, especially about more like old guys, like old style, players. They just learn the music and they just play it. It just comes out because they just listen to it so much. So everything works. Just balance with what you have. But for me, learning theory, it's really what opened my mind, I think, for a lot of the things.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny. At first, I was a little bit afraid to give too much theory out there in the lessons, but they're asking for it. They
Yeah,
want it. That's
yeah,
one of the three main things they're asking for. The other is learning songs, and the third is how to navigate the bass finger
hmm
without
yeah,
getting lost when they get up to, oh no,
yeah,
how
yeah,
do
yeah, for sure. I have a similar experience with my students. Like I was also always afraid to teach theory because I feel people gonna get scared and bored and they want to quit. You
no.
know, but people are interested in that because the people that really care about music, and I think it's the ones that we want to teach as teachers, also as educators. They want to learn what we know. They want to learn how do we get to this place, and I find that should be really one of the ways to reach that place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm, mhm.
What about the future for you, Marcelo? What else? You're still young. You've got a lot of energy. You've already done a lot of stuff, but I'm sure you've still got a lot of notes left in you. What else would you like to do that you haven't already done, or is there something that you're working on other than you mentioned that you have a new single coming out, but just long term, short term, anything at all? What else can we look forward to seeing and hearing from you?
Well, one thing I've been trying to do, and this is a much deeper talk about the new state of music industry and how things are working nowadays. Because as I was saying before, like 10 years ago, you could release an album and people will listen to it, and nowadays it's really hard to do that. Like there's too much content nowadays, right? Like I'm very very inside the social media structure on Instagram and TikTok, and I see how just people, I think, change a lot the way they think about content and the way they enjoy music in a way. So I'm trying to move through a path that it's more about quantity than anything else. So I'm trying to release new songs more often. I've been getting more into this new post rock phase, I think, in my life, and it's a very particular genre that I've been very interested. More like this ambient background kind of music, but I still want to keep a little bit of my bass in bass perspective in it. Have the bass more in the front of the song. But I've been getting more in that phase, and I'm trying to, just write these songs. I go to my computer, I go to my DAW, and I just put stuff together. I get it glued together. I get my buddy to play drums in it. I play all the other instruments, and I just put the song out. I'm trying to get a couple of those out this year, and I want to see how that works because I feel that a lot of the new artists that are putting things out are doing things like that. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if I like that. And it's hard to fight against the current. But so I'm just trying to make my best with what it is nowadays. I would much rather like to release a full album that I can spend time on and work on. But the attention span, as I said, is so short. It's really hard to get people to remember you if you don't put something so often. So I'm trying to do that. And one thing a little bit more unrelated to music, but I'm just trying, to work on. That's what I spent my last whole 1 year working was to get my green card here in the United States. So I'm rooting for that to work out. I just sent an application last week, so that's something that I spent a lot of time. And it's something that I hope that works out. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to focus even more in music. But that's the other thing that I'm just trying to figure out here because it's been almost like 11 years. So I would love to become a resident.
Well, there's a very easy way to do that. Just get married.
I already did, but with a Taiwan girl, so that was too late for me. Yeah, yeah,
I was just joking. That's funny.
yeah. No, I know, yeah. But I know that's it for me. Like I want to focus on that, short, just simple releases. I really love, and this is again another big topic, but I really do enjoy the idea of AI. I know it's a super controversial thing, and I understand there are many different ways to go about it, and we're super early on that. But I have been messing around, playing a lot with AI generation art, like visuals, to help me produce music. So I'm trying to mix that with also something else that we call audio reactive visuals, which is something that I use on this other thing called Touch Designer. It's a whole thing I'm trying to get together. A new project I'm trying to put out with my name, where I go less into the performance solo, jazz format band recording, and it's more about this one song here has this nice visuals with this like a 3 minute song, whatever, and I'm just going to put it out, and I'm going to put on the one after that, and after that. That's kind of what I'm working on. Besides all the other stuff I said before, all the other artists that I love, all the touring, all the music that I play. So I'm trying to do a little bit of that. Yeah.
That's good. It's fascinating. I like the way you think. I like the process and what you said earlier. I think it's very important to test things and to try this, try something else, like you're doing with the prolific series of releases coming in. So I think that's great. I have one last question for you, Marcelo. What would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music.
Great question. Yes. So I actually have the answer on that one ready because that was like the two options I really thought about when I was finishing up high school. I mean, first of all, after finishing high school, I almost became an engineer. I just want to say that, like, it was like 2 weeks, I think, before the lesson starts. I told my parents, I can't do it. Let me just make music for the love of God. So that's something that I almost became. But honestly, I would really like to be a pilot, airplane pilot. That's something that I really love. I love airplanes. I love the whole, engineering, the whole thing about it. That's one of my second biggest, thing that I like, I'd say.
That's I was thinking I've interviewed about 850 bass players, more than that by now actually, and I asked that question, and I'm trying to think who somebody else might have said that, but I get a lot of interesting answers. Probably imagine. Well, this is great. You are a fascinating person, and I really love what you do. And like I said a minute ago, I like the way you think, and you to be congratulated for your drive and for your success. And I wish you much luck and continued success always.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the interview. Thank you.
And let me know how any or all of those projects turn out. And we should have you back for a follow-up interview because I know you're going to have something very cool to talk about. So thank you.
100%, for sure.
You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the ForBass Players Only community, a lot of them over 50, and they are learning bass, having the time of their life playing music that they love. You should come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. You're never too old to groove. Thanks to my special guest, Marcelo Maccagnan. I will see you next week right here, same time, same place. In the meantime, let's play bass.